If you've ever wondered how the college football recruiting process really works from a program's point of view, then you're in luck because today I'm going to get into how teams start with thousands of names at the top of their funnel and squeeze that down to the 20 to 30 guys out of high school that they're going to sign each year. My name is Austin Schaefer, and I've spent over a decade in college football recruiting at 2 Division I programs, and today I want to give you a real look behind the curtain because honestly there's not a lot of content that explains how this process actually works. And before we dive into the process, you need to understand one thing: the recruiting database. Every college football program has one, and this is where everything starts. If you've ever filled out a questionnaire online for a college football program, you may have noticed names like ARMS or Jump Forward, and these are two examples of recruiting databases. And here's what most people don't realize: just because you filled out that questionnaire does not mean you're being recruited yet. It just means that you've possibly entered the system, and I use the word possibly because once you fill out that questionnaire, that program has the ability to approve or deny that questionnaire based on what they see. And these databases track everything: your film, your measurables, all prior evaluations, contact information, everything. And for one recruiting or graduation class, there could be anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 total names in there to start. So if you've ever gotten a general camp invitation mailed to you and you never heard from that school again, then this is why. You were in that pool and you didn't make the cut to the next round. So where do all these names come from? Well, there's a few main sources: recruiting databases, camps, combines, high school coach visits, questionnaires, and I would say the biggest one is the recruiting services. These are companies with scouts on the ground all over the country. National Preps, Catapult are a couple of them. But they're evaluating players, writing reports, maintaining up-to-date information on guys, and getting that information out to their clients on a daily basis. A lot of these recruiting services also have free questionnaires, which I would highly encourage you to do. It's one of the easiest ways to get your name into multiple schools' databases at one time. For example, if you fill out the Catapult questionnaire and there's 60 FBS programs that subscribe to Catapult, then you have the chance to be in those 60 schools' databases when they get that information. Some of these services will also assign you a film grade, and if that film grade's strong, then you could go from unknown to known relatively quickly, because sometimes these schools will pull all the names out of the database and generate a watch list, and they may filter it by film grade in some cases, and if you have a high film grade, you may be one of the first guys to get your film watched, and that could lead to a lot quicker process for you. Another source of where names can come from is high school coach visits, and this would be when we would dispatch our college coaches out onto the road in the wintertime, the springtime, in season to see games. But these are when coaches are getting in to meet with your high school coach. They might pull you out of class to talk with you, and they're really gathering information, trying to learn more about you, trying to learn more about guys that are also in the program that they might not know about yet. They may also ask the coach about other teams that you guys have played. There might be other players in the area that they're recruiting and try to get an idea of those guys as well. They're not just evaluating you here as a player, they're really trying to evaluate you as a person. And they may talk to secretaries, teachers, custodians even, and really get to know more about how you interact with people and treat people. And I've seen coaches go to great lengths to find out something from these people that you don't know that they know about you. Because when you start interacting with these coaches and having more in-depth conversations, they want to make sure you're truthful and that you're a man of character. This document right here is something that we would often send our coaches out on the road with. This is a map with all of the schools that this particular coach needed to see in the South Georgia area. We would also send them out with a book that would have all the prospects' names and information that we had on them to that point. And this book could be used in conversation with the coach and the players to often give them a little ammunition for the conversation, but also tell them what else they need to find out about the kid if we were lacking anything. The coaches would use these books to take notes, and they would bring the completed book back along with any prospect sheets, transcripts they might have, and we would implement all that into the database as well. Then you've also got camps and combines where you show up, get measured, run, and test. With this camp information, they like to track this over time and make sure that you're someone that shows you can develop. If you come to camp as a freshman and then come back as a sophomore or a junior, they can look back at those numbers from your freshman year and say, okay, this guy is really putting in the work and developing. You've also got combines like Rivals, Nike, and Under Armour. And some of these combines have exclusive agreements with certain recruiting services. For example, when I was at Cincinnati, we subscribed to a service called the Underclassmen Report, which is a great service. And they were the exclusive provider of Under Armour camp data and video. So each week there was an Under Armour event, we would have those new results poured into our database. we could go through those and watch the video for that as well, since we were a client. And then there's social media. If you send your video to a coach or recruiting staff member and you're unknown to that point, but they like what they see, they can put you into that recruiting pipeline that we're going to talk about here in a moment, and you could go through that at hyper speed. I've seen guys go from being unknown to offered within a day or so, depending on how good the film is. And we talked about questionnaires and the importance of filling those out as well, so make sure you do that. And one more thing that I wanted to highlight before we get into that recruiting evaluation pipeline. This is an evaluation sheet of what we used in our database at Purdue. Here's an example of George Karlaftis when we recruited him at Purdue. You may recognize him. You can see all of that information at the top. Obviously, the contact information is all covered up, but you can see that personal notes box allows us to track anything that we find out when we visit him in the school or a coach goes inside his home to recruit him. You can see all the information on the left there. The Purdue results there are when he came to our camp at Purdue and tested. There's all that information. You can see the combine results. That was from a Nike or Under Armour combine. And you can see those tracking football boxes there in the lower left-hand corner. Another phenomenal service where they track the data from athletes' other sports that they play. And they assign a score. You can see that PAI is the score that George received, and that's the highest that you can score because George was an elite shot putter, and he also played basketball as well. So I know that's a big part of the recruiting process, and college coaches love when you're a multi-sport athlete. Really wanted to track that there as well. And then I don't have the evaluations on there, but you can see there's room for the position coach, coordinator, and head coach to leave their evaluation as well. And you can see in the upper right-hand corner, too, in green is his height and weight. And the reason we put that in green is because we knew that was his verified height and weight by our strength and conditioning staff. We wanted to make sure we knew if it was verified. We wanted to make sure that was his verified height and weight as opposed to a huddle where you never know how true that could be. Here's an eval sheet from my time at Cincinnati. We used what was known as Exos at the time. Now it's known as Catapult. You can see all that contact information at the top. Player contact, coach contact, all the school information, all the notes that we tracked on this player over the course of the time that we recruited him. And we kept track of their evaluations at the bottom there too, so we could go back and access those and see how they changed over time. These are just two examples of information that we would keep on guys in our database and wanted to show you what that looked like and how detailed that can be. Now here's where the funnel really starts to squeeze and cut some names, and it all starts with the recruiting staff evaluation. And I do want to preface by saying that there are other ways of doing this process, such as the recruiting staff and the general manager heading up the evaluation process and telling the coaching staff who they're going to be responsible for recruiting. But for this video, we're going to talk about the process that I've seen firsthand and how I know some schools still operate today. Now with this recruiting staff evaluation, someone from the recruiting staff may pull a certain position all at once. We'll use offensive line for this video. But that report's going to be filtered and sorted by things like height, weight, speed, GPA if we're a high academic school. And there may be guys that get cut before the film even gets turned on based on GPA if it's not high enough, if you're not going to qualify, or if you're not fast enough, or if the size is not there. And then once we get into this evaluation, this is a rather quick evaluation because we're just looking to see, okay, does this look like a guy that can play for us at our level? And based on watching film with my position coach previously, does he check the boxes that I know my position coach is going to be looking for? A lot of guys get cut right here because the goal is simple. Eliminate guys that we know can't play for us and don't waste the position coach's time when he gets to watch guys. After this step, you may go from that 3,000 to 5,000 number down to 12 to 1,500 guys that you're really going to take a look at. Now that you've made it through that recruiting staff evaluation, now it's time for that position coach to take a look. And here's where the process starts to get more in-depth and that funnel starts to cut even more guys loose. After the recruiting staff pushes these guys through to the position coaches, then they'll begin to watch them. They'll put their notes and evaluations in there, and this is where the board will start to form. In some cases, the head coach will allow the position coach to entirely recruit their position, and they have the ability to offer guys after they watch and evaluate them. There's also some cases where after the position coach takes a look, then maybe the coordinator and that entire unit will watch them together. And then sometimes one step further, after that coordinator and that side of the ball watches the film, then it may go to the head coach. I know I listened to an interview Curt Cignetti did. He talked a little bit about their recruiting process, and he personally watches every recruit's film that they're on the fence about offering and determines if they're going to take that kid or not. And I know there's some head coaches that'll operate that way as well. And now that a recruit is through that pipeline, they've been watched by the position coach and coordinator and head coach if necessary, now the board can start to be formed. And this board is going to consist of anywhere from 30 to 100 guys depending on the position. And let's continue to use that example of offensive line. You're definitely going to have a bigger number here because you may take 2, 3, 4 guys out of high school. And of those 30 to 100 guys, that board is going to be split usually into 3 tiers. That top tier is going to be your high priority offered level guys, usually tiered off in the order of how you would accept their commitment. That middle level is going to be guys that are still a priority. You definitely want to see them in person, whether that's seeing them in the school workout in the spring or getting them to your camp in the summertime. But these guys are close and can definitely work their way up into that top group rather quickly. That third tier of guys is more developmental. They may have to improve size. They may have to improve their film a lot more. They definitely have more work to do, but these guys can definitely still move their way up. And you're not dead yet by any means because you're still on that board. You still got a chance. Now that that board has started to fill out and we got our guys at the top, we got guys that we feel good about offering, now we need to do the background and research on them to make sure that we can go ahead and proceed with the offer. Because what you need to understand is this is a business decision for these college programs. You've got the scholarship, gear, food, housing, medical care, and that's before all of the NIL and rev share dollars are being thrown at guys. And over a 4 to 5 year period, that's easily a $500,000 investment. Programs are going to do everything they can to make sure that you're worth it before they extend a committable offer to you. And after these scholarship offers go out, there's still a lot of movement. Guys are moving up, guys are moving down based on workouts, character, grades. There's a lot of reasons why guys can move up or down the board. Players commit elsewhere. New guys will continue to emerge throughout the process. Some guys may fall off the board even after being committed to your program because their senior film may fall off compared to where they were as a junior, and you got to cut ties with that kid. And this is why that recruiting board has so many names, especially if you're taking more guys at one position as opposed to one running back or one quarterback. You got to have a lot of options to pivot to in case stuff starts to hit the fan. Now, after the bulk of the junior evaluations have been completed, and let's say we're into a class's senior year now, that board may look like 50 to 75 guys, and your 20 to 30 high school signees that I mentioned at the beginning are going to come from that board. I would say in a class's senior year, most of those guys are already going to be committed, but those are the numbers we're going to be working with when it gets closer and closer to signing day. And that's the funnel. Thousands and thousands of names cut down at each level until we get that 20 to 30 person high school signing class. And here's the reality. Most people think that getting noticed can be the hardest part of the process. It's not. It's getting on a board and staying on the board throughout the entire process. Because now you've seen it. How many stages there are, how many decision makers are involved, and just how many guys get cut along the way. Hopefully this gives you a clear understanding of how that process works, and more importantly, hopefully it allows you to be one of those guys that sticks on a recruiting board and you make it all the way through to the end until you're a part of some school signing class. If you or somebody else that you know is serious about playing college football, then please do me a favor and do yourself a favor. Go ahead and hammer that like button, hammer that subscribe button, and lock yourself into trending up because we're going to continue to break down the recruiting process step by step and help you get in front of the right schools. Stay tuned for more.